Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our meeting. Please ensure that your cell phones are in airplane mode to make it easy for all of us. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good evening to everyone. Tonight, under appointments, we have Jen Seiss from the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I went too far ahead. We have a public hearing tonight on the issuance of building permit for a garage and additional living space on 32 Hemlock Lane, private road. Map 124, lot 43, for Stephen and Barbara Kresge. Are they present? Please come make your presentation.
I can do it for you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So this is a permit for a garage and a family room addition. There's already a house on the property. Peter Cook viewed the road, noting that there's a solid base and there's already a home on the property, so it's not creating any more additional traffic. He asked that after the project is complete, if the road needs to be graded or they should fix any damage that's occurred through the construction process, and recommended that they join the road association for future maintenance. The planning board knew of no pending projects or conditions that would hinder the issuance of a building permit, and also noted that the application as presented did not meet the select board policy on private road minimum requirement. And everybody else has weighed in, and I have the agreement and release to be approved.
Questions from the board, please?
How many other homes are there on that road?
There's a lot of homes out there, and they're at the very end.
Okay.
And there was a new house built right next to them that's been through the same process.
I think the big thing that came up when we talked about it from the planning side was there's a pretty low spot going out through there, but it's established and been that way for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So.
Is there any other questions? Is anybody here to speak in favor of the project? Is there anybody here to speak against the project? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of members of the board. What is your pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the application.
We have a motion for acceptance. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second, Mrs. Hatch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll have a vote.
Air aye.
Hardikoff, aye. Hatch, aye.
Bye-bye.
Bailey, aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Now I will close this portion of the public hearing
Okay.
for 352 Hemlock Lane. Now we will move on with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. Please, Jen, if you will, you can either go to the podium, please. Thank you. Hello? Can you hear me?
It's a little button in front.
Yours should be
Here we
green.
go. It's
Okay.
green now. So,
You might want to turn it up a little bit, please.
all right, is that better?
That's
All
better.
right, thank you. So,
Audience satisfied? Thank you. Please.
So by way of introduction, my name is Jen Seiss. I was appointed as the new executive director at Stratford Regional Planning Commission and started back at the end of May. I've been taking some time this fall to visit each of the communities in our region to introduce myself and get to know you, your community, and just establish that line of communication between us. Just a little bit of background, I've been working specifically in New Hampshire in the state and regional planning realm for about 15 years now. Working a little bit before that as well, but elsewhere. So just like I said, taking this opportunity to get out, introduce myself, say hello. and also provide you a little bit of information about who Stratford Regional Planning Commission is and what we do. Barrington is one of 18 communities that comprise the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. So that's all of Stratford County, plus a couple communities in Rockingham and Carroll County as well. Our regional planning commissions are established under state statute, RSA 36, and we are essentially here to support our municipalities and coordinate on concerns of regional interest. So those things that you may be experiencing, that your neighbors are experiencing as well, we provide that forum for you to come together and discuss and strategize how to work collaboratively. Under state statute, we have a couple of obligations that we fulfill, one of which is to prepare a regional comprehensive plan, which was last adopted in January of 2015. That's something that gets done every 5 years, so in theory, we should be launching into that fairly soon and updating. Another piece that we do is a housing needs assessment, and that is a tool that is available for municipalities to use in your own local master plan. Provides a lot of the data behind the housing supply and demand universe. We also serve as an economic development district, and this is a federal designation under EDA. And what that means is we prepare a comprehensive economic development strategy for the region to put forward different initiatives for the municipalities. It opens up some other avenues for potential funding for economic development initiatives. We also serve, we have play 3 roles here, as a metropolitan planning organization. And this is the federal designation for the regional transportation planning processes. And so we work in concert with you, our municipalities, as well as our state DOT and federal highways and federal transit. That's the mechanism through which we identify projects that we feed up to the state for federal funding on our national highway system roads, or usually our state numbered roads. So as I mentioned, we're comprised of our 18 communities. Each of our communities has at a minimum 2 commissioners. Our commissioners serve as our governing body. They are the ones who set policy for the region and set the direction for what we as staff do. And so we're here to execute your vision. John Huckins is here tonight. He's one of your commissioners, as well as Steve Diamond, who is not here, but I was hoping to be here. So 2 commissioners that you have there at the table who are actively engaged in our planning processes. So our commissioners serve just as that, our governing body. Stratford Regional Planning Commission used to work at National Regional Planning Commission, a little slip there. The Stratford Regional Planning Commission meets quarterly. That's our general business. And then we have an executive committee that is comprised of 7 of our commissioners. They meet monthly, provide more of the day-to-day administrative oversight for the organization. We also have our policy committee. The policy committee is comprised, again, of commissioners, as well as State Department of Environmental Services has a representative, Department of Transportation has a representative, Coast, UNH's Wildcat Transit System, all sit on our policy committee, and they govern and drive our transportation planning programs. So when we, as I said, solicit those projects to send up to DOT for funding, they're the ones who are voting on those projects and what we are going to submit up to the state for funding. Our commissioners also govern our economic development district. Can do that. And then our other piece we have is our transportation advisory committee. This is predominantly comprised of municipal staff. So Marcia Gassis from your planning department frequently sits in on our transportation advisory committee meetings. They're the ones that have the on the ground day-to-day experience and hands-on relationship with transportation planning projects in your community and can bring that to the table. So that's just in a nutshell who we are and what we do for services. I know we've done and are currently working on a few projects here in Barrington. Kyle is working on an update to the master plan, working on the community facilities and utilities chapter. Let's see what else we have in the works. Hazard mitigation plan update is on the radar. Natural resource assessment, and working with the Conservation Commission to look at and do a geospatial analysis, so using some of our GIS data to look at where some of the co-occurrences of natural resources are and identify high priority conservation areas. Another project that we have ongoing in the community. And just kind of to go back to the transportation programs, we are again in the process of soliciting projects. We do have a handful of different projects listed in our long-range transportation plan from the town, all predominantly looking at safety concerns, primarily 125. I know Colin, who's our senior transportation planner, was just here in town this morning, meeting with the police department, looking at crash data to try and put together a road safety audit application for the town at some priority locations. And those road safety audits lead into what are called the Highway Safety Improvement Program funding, which is 100% federally funded dollars for high priority safety improvements. So that's kind of in a nutshell who I am, what Stratford Regional Planning Commission is, and what we're working on currently here in Barrington. With that, I'd say any questions that you all have, I'm more than happy.
Jen, thank you very much. Does the board have any questions, please? I'm going to go out of bounds. Does anybody in the public have any questions? I have one question.
Sure.
Do you have any association with Ready Rides?
With Ready Rise.
Ready Rides is a group that comes out of Stratford, Barrington area, and they provide transportation to individuals to the hospitals
Okay.
at no charge. They're a,
I'm going to play the new kid card on this
Okay.
one, and it's quite possible that Colin has through the transportation planning programs, and particularly the Regional Coordinating Council, will work with the different transit providers, both the private and the not-for-profit sector. So
I would appreciate if you have any more information on it, you would get it back to Connor so that we could review it. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Again, I want to thank you on behalf of the board and the citizens of Barrington. Thank you very much for your presentation.
all right, thank you so much, and
Thank
I
you.
will just leave a short little handout that just summarizes what we do and my business cards.
Thank you. Moving on now, we're going to have a budget presentation. Please. Sir? Thank you.
My name is Linda Martin. I'm your tax collector in Barrington, and we're going to review the budget for 2019. The first line item are the contracts. That is our vendor for mortgage search. He does one after the impending.
Excuse me just a minute, please. Thank you, Jen. Please
He
continue.
does
Sorry.
a search on the mortgagees after the impending lien goes out and before the impending deed letter goes out. He has provided us with a little bit of a break compared to other mortgagee searches. So it's, he charges $9 as opposed to $10 for the first property and $2 for any subsequent properties. And will come in under the $2,500 on the contracts. Office equipment, maintenance, we don't really have one. We keep that line item open with the dollar, but there is no expense there. The same for the equipment rental. The copier includes the copier repair, replacement, toner, and that came in under $300. For the printing of our tax bill twice a year, we get a cost savings on the postage. The vendor gives us, I think it's a 9 or 10 cent break on every stamp, saving us almost $1,000. We have approximately 9,480 tax bills go out per year. and that will come in just under the 2,500. Conferences and training went up this year. Our deputy left and went to another job, so we have a new deputy, and so certification and training began again this year. The first year is completed by our new deputy, Caitlin, and she has 2 more years to go. So that got added back into that line item. And next year, we will both be attending the conference together. Dues and fees went up. We have two gets put in for the membership for the New Hampshire Tax Collectors Association. There's 2 of us go to the spring workshop and 2 for the annual conference. The Registry of Deeds came in just under the 900. This included 12 months of lien redemptions, and then the big ticket item was the lien redemption of the actual lien itself. And mileage and expenses. Peyton went up and down to the annual conference this year. She did not stay up there, so the mileage went up on that one. But next year she will stay, so the mileage won't.
Understand, okay.
And for the 2 of us to go to the spring workshop and daily trips to the post office and her certification training, she commutes 5 days back and forth to Concord. So that did go up a little from last year. Office supplies, we came in right under $600 or about $600. I think it was very close. And the postage, I was told by the ABC that the postage might be going up. I asked in March and they didn't see any increase, but we did come in under the 7,000, and I'm going to try and keep it under the 7,000 for this year. We'll just be more aware of all the letters we have to send out.
They're in DC right now begging for more money, so that was the reason why. Thank you.
And then the equipment item remains the same at $1. It's just a line item we keep open. So the big expense, not big expense, but the reason why the budget has gone up is my deputy will be getting health insurance. And the health insurance, Peyton's job has been combined with the revenue. So we are splitting her part of her hourly wages and her insurance. And that's it.
All right,
Any questions?
Peter from the ABC have any more questions they would like answered?
No, we had our questions fundamentally answered unless somebody has something else.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions, please?
No, I think the presentation was nice.
Excellent.
I think it's good for you to see what exactly we're spending our money on. And even though the postage seems very high, a lot of that is incurred back to the customer on those impending liens, the certified return receipts. They're actually, that's added into their bill. Tracy?
Yes, just throw a rock next time. I'm sorry, Mr. Tracy.
The total amount collected based on this budget each year, how much does the town bring in revenue based on this portion?
24, almost 25 million.
25 million. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Moving on. John, please.
The ABC had sent out a couple of questions, I answered one. And the second page is the budget, the way that it is originally, but I expect my 2018 study book should be in the end. No problem. And as you can see in the line in the bottom, every year I do an analysis showing what percentage of my budget is actually covered by the permit fees. And we've been shooting for 66% coverage because that's the portion that we felt was in building. Over the last few years, and I tried to put it in the narrative, when I started here, there was a backlog with a whole bunch of zoning violations. There was a backlog with a whole bunch of zoning violations, and I spent a lot of time outside of my building activity trying to take care of some of those. And those are really all brought up. I got 2 right now, and the people that are working with me, I spend very little time now on that. I mean, I'm not sick. I still have to spend some time, and I still do a lot of stuff outside the building, working with planning, and you know, I got the health issues and that kind of stuff too. But I think more realistically, because of the issues that have been addressed, we probably spend 70 to 75% of our time working with the building now instead of the 66. But if you look at the revenue this year and last year, we were at 74% for both years. And before that, we were running right around the 66. So I think our permit fees are right in line to cover the cost for what it's really going to be. We can go over line by line, or we can look at the questions that Budget Committee had.
John, why don't you do line by line for us, please?
Okay. So if we do line by line, I'll go off of that page that I gave on the second page, because it kind of shows where I project I'm going to be along with what the cost is and what the projected cost is for next year. The wages, those I get from upstairs based on whatever it was you guys had for an agreement for the step in the COLA. The overtime line, that was one of the ones that the Budget Committee had, which I answered in that first question. They thought it was a little high. I'm not going to be spending all of it, but when I first got hired here, the selectmen at the time were pretty interested in trying to have off-time coverage if someone needed inspections on Fridays or something like that to keep stuff going. So I normally come in and take care of those, along with doing whatever meetings. Last Saturday, I went to a lot of lecture classes, so all that's all tied to it too. So, but I've been trying to work on my own house, so I've been taking time off. So when I come in my off hours and take care of this, what it does is just less earn time I'm using because it stays as regular salary time and it's not getting into the overtime. So I like to keep that budget line there. I think it might be needed in the future, and that's the reason why I think it looks like it's over, you know, funded this year. The earn time buyout, we just had to have a number in there to carry. That number's really low if you look at what we could possibly be. But everybody in my department uses their time, they don't try to sell it, so therefore we've been staying at 0 every year. The benefits lines, that stuff I got from upstairs, they had a question on the Budget Committee about that, and I think it's the insurance cost actually went down. There was no change in employment or anything like that, it was just straight, those costs went down. The vehicle maintenance, we're going to be way under this year. Last year I actually went over. The car is 2011, I think. So it's got a little bit of age on it. The car's still in really good shape. There's no issues with keeping it. It's just that we need some money there in case something does go wrong, just to cover the budget. Office equipment, we'll leave it. It's basically we want to leave that stuff alone. The next one, that rental line, what it was a rental on a printer that we had before. It was an old line. And if you look on the front, you can see it got changed to the copier lease and maintenance. So it was put into the line below it. For some reason, both lines got carried last year, but it was really only supposed to be on one line. The building communications, those are the cell phones we have. We're going to be way under budget this year too. The reason for that is the cell phones that we have, they still work, so we haven't upgraded even though we're scheduled for upgrades. But if something should happen and our phones should break, we need funding in place to cover them. So if we did get them replaced, that's the budget line we'd have. We are planning on using them for another year without doing it, so hopefully I can turn money back, but you know, we don't know. The conferences and training, that's one of the lines I did ask to increase. The cost for training is going up. Everybody's charging us more money. You know, it's the only way I can explain that one, I guess. Dues and fees, we're right in line for where we have been. They had an increase last year in a couple of the things that we were in, and this year they seem to be staying steady on that, so there shouldn't be an issue. On the mileage, we were way under before. When the car broke down, we had to use our own vehicles, so we had a higher mileage thing last year. But this year, we didn't have that. The car hasn't had any issues, but we still need that line just in case the car does break down to cover the mileage. Because last year, I put it against the vehicle, but I was told that we need a separate line for mileage. I couldn't put it against the vehicle line. Office supplies. Postage, we're gonna be way down on postage. Most of our postage is when I have zoning violations and I have to send out certified letters and all the other stuff. And because working with the people that get them to stay into compliance has a combination of words got out, people will come in and talk to me now instead of doing something wrong. And also, we did take a few people to court so they know we're serious, so they're dealing with us and no, that one, we haven't had to send a lot out. The operating supplies, we're leaving that alone. The uniforms and protective gear, we went over a little bit on that. The reason why we went over was the logos that we had, because there were so many stitches in them, they ended up costing 25 a piece instead of 15 from what they originally quoted me. We actually bought a few less clothes than we were planning on to cover the difference. John Abbott asked me, so I just ordered some long sleeve shirts because it is starting to get a little cold to be out with short sleeve shirts. So my total budget line, I think, is all going to come in, and that line's going to be overexpended just a little bit more than what it shows. And then the building equipment line is the same, we're leaving that alone. I projected the 500 at the end. With the way things are going, I don't think we'll have to. What I did was, I've been cleaning out the big map file cabinets in storage to try to put my plans in it, and the goal was to bring that back to the office to put our plans in it. But because of getting that large planner scanner thing, my goal is now, instead of cluttering the office, is once we get them scanned, I'll bring them over and leave them in storage and leave the cabinets over there. But I've got like about 12 drawers cleaned out, so I got plenty of room over there for storage to put them in. I think I answered. Is there any?
Peter, do you have any questions that wasn't unanswered from your memo?
No, and I think I can speak for the ABC that we are very appreciative that questions we sent out on Wednesday night were answered on Thursday. So I think that makes the process very efficient.
Does anybody on the board have any questions, please?
Well put together.
John, I have one question then on the mileage on the vehicle. Rough, how high is that mileage on that vehicle?
55, 56,000. We don't put many miles on it. It's nothing like a police cruiser puts on for miles. I believe we can get another 5-6 years out of that vehicle, no problem. The way it is, as long as we keep our maintenance done. I think last year, that thing with the transmission, I found out afterwards it was one of those things that vehicle had problems with. And it wasn't because of the amount of use and stuff on it. And the rest of the car's been running good. We always keep our maintenance done, the oil changes and everything when they do, to try to keep everything running good. We put tires on it last year too, so I don't see a lot of money going into the car the next couple of years, to tell you the truth.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board have questions?
I just have a question. Do we do the preventative maintenance such as oil undercoating and or fluid filming the underside of the vehicle, just making sure we keep the body intact in the drivetrains?
Well, and all rights, my vehicles rot out before they die.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't looked into that. I can look into seeing about having something like that done. I got enough money, I think, in this year's budget. So if we get that, there's a couple of different systems I see where there's a coating they put on it, but also I was told there's an oiling thing now that they can do to where it lubricates all the stuff underneath. I guess it helps with brake lines and everything. And it's, I believe it's only a few $100s or something to have that done.
About $250.
Yeah, so it's probably worth doing done. I got that plenty of money in the budget line to do it this year, which could probably be a good investment in the long run.
Yep.
I'll look into that.
Andy, wonderful idea. Thank you. Anybody else have anything else? John, thank you very much. That's why, okay. finish the budgets of the tax collector, building inspector, I'm going to open up the public comment. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes maximum. Does anybody have any public comments? Seeing none, I'll move on. Move on to old business. We have, the next thing on the agenda is the highway track recommendation from Peter.
Matthew, remember a couple weeks ago, we opened up the bids
Pete, sorry, is that green light on?
on the truck. On the truck, and the truck itself, the prices were within $300-400 of each other. The big change was on the equipment. After looking at the bids and stuff, what we decided the best step to be would be keep the stainless steel sander that we have and go with a stainless steel dump body. The reason being, the dump body is usually the first thing that rots out and gets rusted and gets holes in it. And the second reason is if 10 years down the road, when you go to trade it in or sell it, you'll be able to get more money, or you can keep the dump body and put it on a new chassis. So given the numbers and everything, I felt that would be the best way to go. So my recommendation was to go with the Freightliner with the Fairfield plow, wing, hookup. That means all the controls in the cab and stuff with the stainless steel body for a total of $153,434.
Questions from the board? Yes, Tracy?
There's a portion of this that's being funded, what's left over?
55.
Okay, so 55 of this
Yep.
is being funded not with town dollars.
No, it comes from the state grant or the state funding that they gave us at the end, I want to say it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year. And it would exhaust that, and that would.
And your decision on this, it's within $300 between the two manufacturers, I noticed on the detail that you sent, thank you. The reason is that this is a truck that you're also familiar with, so if we had to do repairs on it, if
We can,
you're
yeah.
more familiar with this particular
I
model.
mean, it's not an international,
Okay.
they're pretty much all the same. The problem is in today's world is you're getting up to all the stuff that's inside the cab and stuff, you need the computer and all that good stuff to plug into it most of the time. I mean, your basic stuff, we know how to do and we can do, but that type of, if it's running rough or whatever, you gotta take and have the computer put on it, and we don't have that computer yet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? All right, seeing none, Dan?
I'll make a motion to approve, and then the really good numbers is up, and it's a very heavy-duty truck chassis, and it should last a long time.
And I'd second that motion.
All right, further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's it. Well, we're going to have to take 3 different votes tonight to approve 3 different votes in the motion, so I'm going to ask your indulgence on that.
I need a motion now to exhaust the grant money, the $55,000 grant money towards this truck.
I'd make a motion to
I'll second
exhaust the,
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none?
Tracy and
Dan.
Tracy and Dan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And now I need a motion to spend the balance out of the highway equipment capital reserve.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
I'd second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evans. Peter, thank you very much for all your work.
That was
Appreciate
really
it.
detailed, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, what's that highway equipment capital reserve, what's that bring that down to?
I almost had those numbers. We can't produce those. The trustees of the trust funds have to.
Right.
And the last time I saw the balance, it was just over 200,000. So spending 100,000, we'll have about 100,000.
About 103,000, I think, is what we left.
Yeah, a little bit more because it was 54 something.
Approximately.
I can, once I get that from the trustee of trust funds, I can let you know.
Next item on the agenda is Swain Road Class 6 section. Connor, you have any?
So this is obviously a topic the board's discussed for a long time. You'll see in my memo that I've summarized all of the additional information the board has requested. At the end of the memo is the recommendation from administration, supported by Fire Chief Rick Walker, declaring that Class 6 portion in emergency lane. If you have any questions about what exactly that means, I can let you know. In summary, it allows the town to do work on that section free of liability, but creates no expectation that any work would ever be done.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Ms. Hadcock.
By allowing the town to do the work, but not committing to doing the work, does that leave the town liable in any way?
Our understanding is no. So what I would be looking for here is a vote to support the declaration of emergency lane. That would not make it an emergency lane tonight. After that, what we would do is create a policy and procedure to bring to the board on how to implement an emergency lane, since this would be the first one in town. And the second thing we would have to do is prepare the public hearing for an emergency lane. Because this is a public road, there does not have to be notices sent to all residents of the road, unlike a private road, but there would need to be a public hearing. And those would be the two steps that would follow if the board supported declaring this an emergency lane.
Would you go into emergency line in a little bit more detail instead of waiting for the public hearing? Can you do that?
So what an emergency lane does is, right now Rick or Pete, if I say anything or if you'd like to clarify, certainly step in. But the town cannot spend money on a Class 6 road. It's a public road, but the town can't spend money on it. So that creates problems in emergency situations where if the condition of the gravel road is such that emergency crews can't get through, or the snow is so deep that emergency crews can't get through, that it puts the town in a tough situation liability-wise, where an emergency lane allows the town, free of liability, to, in emergency situations, utilize town resources on the Class 6 road for the purposes laid out in the emergency lane policy and procedure. So it's no expectation, unlike, if a town maintained a Class 6 road for, I think it's 5 years, that creates an expectation that the town would do it. This emergency lane creates no expectation and is very explicit in the RSAs. I quoted some of the RSAs in the memo, so also supports the public need for keeping such a lane passable by emergency vehicles, which is supported by an identified public welfare or safety interest. And then an emergency lane would allow the town to expend money on any work deemed necessary to render such a way passable by firefighting equipment and rescue or other emergency vehicles, and it shall not be construed to create any duty or liability on the part of any municipality.
Anybody on the board have? Ms. Hadcock.
Could you read the section in the memo where you provided two different things? One of them was the number of other private roads that lead to town resources. And could you also provide the response of the pinning so that we are to understand the actual amount of traffic that traveled during the study to the town forest?
Absolutely. So over the process, the board has requested certain additional information to help guide your decision. One of the questions was traffic count. So this conversation started because the town encourages use of a town forest, which is on the Class 6 portion of this road. And conveniently enough, the town dispatched Stratford Regional Planning Commission, based on our annual fee, to do a traffic count. So traffic count was done, which totaled the number of vehicles that access the Class 6 portion of the road, and of that, how many entered the town forest. So that total was about 3.8% over a 2-week period of the vehicles on the Class 6 section of Swain Road entered the town forest. And that was earlier this fall, with the understanding that the Stratford Regional Planning supported that was an adequate sample of when those resources would be used. Additionally, so Class 6 roads leading to public access recreation, so there's a lot of public access recreation in town. There's very few Class 6 roads that access them. The town forest is off Swain Road, that is a Class 6 section, excuse me. The Tamposi is off Tibbetts and accessible by one end off Pinkham Road, which is in Lee. Clark Goodwell is off a state-maintained road, that's Route 9. There's one on Marsh Road, which is being worked on but is not current. The Califf land is off a Class 5 road, and then there's a Burr property, which is also in the works, but that's also a Class 5 road. And then the final piece of information the board requested was the number of Class 6 roads in town. So the number of actual roads is 29. So this section of Swain Road is one of 29 Class 6 roads in town. Emergency lane is also a possibility on private roads. It's a different process, and any person who lives on the road can object to an emergency lane declaration, but there's 162 private roads in town.
Any further questions?
I would just like,
Ms. Hatch?
I would just like to hear something from Peter.
I don't know a whole lot about the emergency lane status, other than when John asked me. I don't think emergency lane status is the way to maintain any road, the way it is open-ended. It doesn't say who determines what's an emergency. It doesn't say, you know, are we going to go down there every single snowstorm? Are we not going to go down there during the snowstorms? It doesn't say, you know, I mean, who makes the decision on whether or not what's going on dictates an emergency situation where we have to go down there? That's the confusion part to me. I just don't understand that.
That's also going to be put together, when we put the emergency lane document together, that's going to be addressed in there, Peter. So this is just a preliminary right now.
Yeah, like I said, I don't understand, you know, I don't understand if that means every snowstorm we don't turn around, we go to the end and turn around, or you know, I guess my point is who determines what's an emergency situation is where we have to go down in there. I guess that's where we are.
Comments well taken, thank you, very well. Ms. Hatch, did that answer it? Do you have anything else you want to ask? Ms. Haddock?
So it's my understanding that there are 5 roads like this within our town that lead to recreational areas.
Yes, but 3 of those are Class 5, already town-maintained roads.
Okay, so this is one of 2.
Correct.
Very good, thanks.
Any further questions? Dan?
Do you have feedback from the chief? Hi, chief.
Chief Walker, please.
Like the road agent, I'm a little bit confused about what I've read about the process. From a perspective, from an emergency services perspective, I have the right to order whatever services I need to mitigate the emergency at hand. But that also means that I put the liability from a financial standpoint onto my budget. You know, there would be no obligation on the part of the Board of Selectmen if I were to, if there was a washout on a Class 6 road, and I requested that the highway department come down and put 4 or 5 loads of gravel in, or a culvert or whatever, so that I could get in and service the people that need to be serviced. In theory, the highway department or the Board of Selectmen could say to the fire department, yeah, we did the work for you, but you're financially responsible for the services that you provided. And I get the whole idea of one right hand, left hand, it doesn't really matter. So the idea behind an emergency lane, my interpretation of it is it really just clarifies the ability to, somebody couldn't challenge it. A taxpayer couldn't challenge the fact that maybe somebody that doesn't have anything to do with a particular Class 6 road doesn't want to use their tax dollar to make repairs, and by state law, if the town declares it a Class 6 road, we can't put money in it, so it can become a sticky wicket. So in theory, what you're doing is you're putting a policy together that gives guidelines in particular, my position as the fire chief or emergency management director, to say that if we need to make repairs to a Class 6 road in order for emergency services to access residents that need our services, that we'd be within our ability to do that. It does not mean that we would be going in and plowing that road every snowstorm. What it in effect would mean is that if we got a blizzard and some trees came down and stuff and we had to get in there to access for an emergency, somebody needed our services, that I would be in our right, or my subordinate would be in their right to request the services of the highway department to come down and assist us in removing the tree, clearing the snow wide enough so we could get in. It's really something we've been doing for a long time. The highway department has been very supportive over the years of making sure that fire and EMS and police can get wherever we gotta go, whether it could be your private driveway. I've requested them on numerous occasions to send a truck into a private driveway and open that up so we can get an ambulance in and take somebody to the hospital in a storm. They have never, ever refused us. They've bent over backwards to make our life as easy as they could. This emergency lane really just clears up the language of us being able to say we can do this, and not the town not getting yammed up after. Is that pretty much right?
Perfect. Yep, very well explained.
Any more questions from the board of the fire? Yes, Dan.
I'll make a motion to.
No, any more questions to, for the fire chief? Okay, thank you, Rick, I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Ms. Hadcock.
I'm trying to follow the rules.
I'm doing a very good job.
Thank you.
I have to sit around and clean my glasses, I'm sorry.
I actually have one more question for Peter, our road agent. Peter, has there ever been a time where this particular road was impassable?
I guess you'd have to ask the people that live down there, but I mean, I'm gonna just come right out and say it. The way we've always done it in the past, and I'm hoping there's people in here, they have called and said their road is so bad that they can't get in and out, and I have done it. I haven't done it with the town, I had a contractor do it, and that's what I've done on all roads. I've had one lady call me last year, and her son was sideways in the road during an ice storm, and vehicles couldn't pass, and I didn't send one of my trucks down there. I sent a contractor down there to sand in so they could get I tried. Rick calls when we're hooked up. We got radios. As soon as the radio goes off for the fire department, we got a truck on the way to wherever they're going in the winter, in the mud season, just to get them in and out. It doesn't matter whether it's a town road, Class 6 road, a private road. I firmly believe we're all in this together, and if something needs to be done, then we can do it. It's a hard deal. I mean, I've had people call and say, hey, I live on this road, and I got an oil delivery coming. The truck's here. It's halfway down the road, and it can't go any further. Send a private contractor in there and sand it. Let's we don't want anybody to be in any harm. I try really hard to do it within, there's what everybody's gonna understand is there's restrictions I have to follow too.
Sure.
And I try to follow those restrictions, but my heart says when somebody needs help in the winter or in the spring, help them. That's just who I am.
Thank you.
Peter, thank you, we understand that, thank you. Any other further questions? All right, so what we need to do here is we need to decide whether or not we want to approve moving forward with this emergency road declaration or not. And what will happen next is that if we approve to move forward, then we will sit down with people from the board. Definitely, Peter and Rick will be involved, and we will write that emergency plan out. So if the board is in favor of having it, I would accept the motion. If they're not, I don't get a motion, that we don't move forward with the emergency declaration. What is the board's choice? Do I have a motion to move forward? Dan,
I'll make the motion to move forward.
I have a motion to move forward. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion to second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing Ms. Hardikoff.
I really, to be very honest, I think we're creating, I think we're creating something we don't need to create. I think we've heard that our roadways have been passable. I think we've heard that the town has 3.8% over a 2-week period of time in the fall where there would be probably some of the highest traveling to the town forest. I think we've heard that we've never left our residents stranded, and to me, one more
Policy.
that
you.
has to be followed, mitigated, litigated, is probably not the best way to go. If you are going to make this approach, then I would suggest you do it for those whopping 2 roads that both lead to recreational facilities that are used within the town, and not just one. So that's my feedback.
Mr. Air.
I think it's important to be clarified, we had advice of our lawyer, but basically, my feelings, we've been breaking the rules, this will clarify it, and all the department heads. So when Rick makes a call, we have something to fall back on, not just his word. He follows up, everything will be cleared up. We are breaking the laws now.
I don't think we're breaking the laws. I think it's a matter of providing service to people that are in need.
We have got legal counsel advice on this?
Yeah, we did, and no, we're not breaking any laws.
No, we're not breaking.
No, so by creating this, we will clarify everything.
That's on the advice of the attorney.
Oh, they're right 50% of the time.
I'm of the opinion it muddies things more.
That's correct.
My position is I agree with Ms. Hardikoff on this, that we're putting a lot of effort and resource into something that has such a small impact for our town. It's not utilizing our resources the way it's constructed.
I also feel that we're asking too much on that policy. Is there any other further discussion? Now I will take a vote, an individual vote for everybody. Mr. Air.
Air aye.
Hardikoff, nay.
If we do it anyway, I'm going to vote aye, because it's a service we're providing, and this supposedly should clarify it. So I'll vote aye.
Knapp, nay.
Bailey, nay. Motion doesn't carry. Moving on to new business. Under the new business, we have the select board procedures for the amendment that we had for the selectmen's handout, and their handout book. So we have that, we have a page of changes. So I'd like to discuss those here in public.
Can you say that again? What are we talking about?
Select board rules of procedures.
Oh, thank you.
I saw that here somewhere.
Thank you very much. I have it right here. You don't need to give me a copy.
Does anybody need an extra copy?
I just didn't hear what you said.
No, I just read through it. And Chairperson Bailey, can I
Yes,
speak
yes.
a little bit on this? So the Board of Select People have made the decision to take state recommendations on how we communicate with department heads and how we communicate within town government. And we as a board had agreed upon adding a few more layers to that communication so that we were operationally all on the same page in how we approached working with our department heads. And maybe Chairperson Bailey, if we read through just what's in red, which are the changes that enhance this, and that way the public could always go read through their own review of the actual state statutes.
Very well. Under conduct with other select board members and staff, under section B5, it says direct, and the word all is being added. Under the word questions, S is being added, direct all questions to the staff of the town administrator, interim town administrator, or administrative assistant to the town administrator, and the word "or" in department heads was crossed off, followed by the remainder part of the sentence under section 5. Is there anything I need to know down there?
No.
Thank you. Under section 6, B1, in addition is not act individually, but only as a board. For example, all directives or requests to the town administrator must come from the board, not from any individual member, except that an individual select board member may make reasonable requests for information to the town administrator. In such cases, any information shall also be provided to the entire select board. Section C, the words were removed. It's removed, it says the individual members of the select board. And then the part, in their relations with fellow members shall, that has been removed. And under section 1, it's been added, do not, cannot, and shall not has been added. Recognize that no member by their actions alone can has been removed. And the last part of the sentence is bind the select board or the town. Any questions on this page? Seeing none, I'll move to the second page. Item 2, and the words removed are no member, including the chairperson or vice chairperson. That has been removed, and the word shall remain. And the word not has been added, not conduct any town business outside a regular scheduled meeting without the prior knowledge and the approval of the board meeting. Section 3, 3 I's. The word shall has been added, pursuant has been changed to a small letter, and the word abide by has been answered, and the remove uphold, the intent of has been removed, and what has been added of the laws governing privacy, confidentially, and non-public sessions, and then after sessions, S was added, and the word after and, the word shall not release or discuss these items in non-public session.
Just a comment on that, you probably want to strike the of as well.
George, if I may, so there were 2 changes after this version from the attorney, just clarifying, changing interim town administrator to deputy town administrator and removing that up. Those are the only 2 changes that may be reflected if adopted.
So moved, thank you. And then when we go down to section 4, Roman numeral 4, the word shall is there, the letter R has been changed to a small case, refrain from, and then you go down to the rest of the word board has been capitalized. And moving to section 5, under V, the word shall has been ordered, and the word treat, the capital T has been removed to lowercase, and that is all the changes that remain under this section here. Any comments from the board, please?
No.
Do I have a motion to put these into effect, to make these changes?
I'll make that motion.
I have that motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take a vote. Bailey, aye.
Nap aye.
Hatch, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
There I
Carries, thank you. Next we have is the select person's report.
Would you like to do the minutes and the administrative report?
Oh, yeah.
No, I kind of messed up on that.
Geez, 7:30, you know, we got things we got to do, okay.
It's not like there's a baseball season left.
No, there's nothing like that
Celtics
at
are
all.
playing.
So we have the minutes of, you know what? The
October 9th.
I know.
The,
Yes.
View of minutes from October 9th. All right, I'll play that.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
do we have a motion to accept, or for any corrections or omissions?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes as read. Written.
Second that motion.
Any further comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, minutes are taken care of. Now I guess we'll go back to the Deputy Town Administrator's report.
I just wanted to note a couple community events that happened recently. The fire department open house was October 13th, and Trunk or Treat, sponsored by REC and many other community and town departments, was on October 20th. Just extend gratitude to everybody that helped put those together, including town staff and community members. And then a few other upcoming events and notices. The Barrington Town Clerk's office will be closed on October 25th, which is a Thursday, for their annual conference. There'll be another select board meeting here on Monday, October 29th at 6:30. Trick-or-treating in Barrington will be on Tuesday, October 30th from 5 to 7. The New Hampshire State General Election will be Tuesday, November 6th from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Barrington Middle School. And the second Barrington Library Information Session, the first which occurred the morning of October 20th. The second one, if you're unable to attend or if you have more questions, will be on Thursday, November 8th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. and that's also at the middle school. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Comments?
Comment on that, just for clarification, so that we don't get in a pickle come November 6th, you need all of us for the general election, is that?
Still holds true?
That's the way it's supposed to be. If you can't be there for the day, you're supposed to appoint a selectman pro tem to take your place. We brought the fun stuff for you to do.
You can appoint somebody.
Well, it's my understanding that the select people are supposed to be actually at the front desk at the polls, and for people, whenever there is a question in their on-site registration, that we become the people who would review the documentation and sign off on it.
Not necessarily.
Would you please come to the mic?
Oh, jeez. I'm the new guy, remember?
Yes.
You had 20-year Germanville, so.
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, Suzanne and her folks answer a great deal of those questions. The town clerk answers a lot of those questions. Nothing specifies exactly what the select people are supposed to do. You're just kind of, I believe, supposed to be available for whatever comes up.
Yeah, I did review our responsibilities during elections, and it did specifically state that that is our job that day. And so my only concern is, if in fact that's our job that day, are we, all 5 of us manning that same desk?
No, 3.
No, not at the same time, for sure.
3 of us at a time?
We would let you work from 8 in the morning until 5, and then the rest of us would fill in the rest of the
We'll
day.
share the last
Chairperson
two
Bailey,
hours.
that's very kind of you. I don't think that that will be an offer I'll accept. However,
All right, well,
I'll
I'll
also be there at night.
8, okay, 7 to 4, I'll take from 4 to
I'm
7.
surprised you have that authority,
what authority?
the authority to make judgments on,
You'd have to read through the
I know,
documentation.
I know.
I read through it, and
Yeah.
quite frankly, it is what we are actually appointed to do at the polls that day. So,
and there's been a
Must
change
be
in the
must
law
be
through
three
the
weeks ago
court
today.
today,
Yeah.
too.
so can we do this? Can we actually review our responsibilities and be
Yeah.
100% sure of what we should be doing that day?
What I'll ask is town moderator, if you'll put that together, SB2, the town, put it together and get it to Connor, and Connor will ensure that we all get a copy of it. Try and do it.
When we get something, we haven't gotten anything from the Secretary of State.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we're not supposed to be mitigating other things that come up that day. Are we supposed to be checking people in? Are we supposed to be re-registering independents?
No, and that doesn't happen in this election anyway. But what you can be doing is various other things, assisting people finding where they're supposed to be. Last election, we had a number of people wandering about the school where they should not have been. despite all the fairly clear signage. So we would like to also monitor the use of the alternate entrance that is for handicap, and make sure people get where they're supposed to be and not where they're not supposed to be. And you know, various little things like that we could just use additional staff for.
Would you please just go through the books that you have and just review it? And if there's anything out of the ordinary or anything that pertains to what Select Person Hadacroft has asked about, and turn around and get to Connor on that, please?
Sure.
Appreciate
Why
that.
don't you call us, I'll call Secretary of State tomorrow.
That'll be fine, too. Somebody, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Connor?
If I may, two things. One, I know that the town clerk, Kim, has made an extra effort to get volunteers to work the elections, and also she is familiar with the responsibilities of select people at elections. So between all of us, and if Suzanne calls the Secretary of State, we can get information to you by the next board meeting, so you know.
She's actually at a conference this week,
Yeah.
so she may end up with some information.
That would be great. I just think it's important for us to know what our role is there and to fulfill that role.
The other thing I know that we have to do is we have to sign the sticker that goes on the box after it's all over. So that's it. All right, moving on, clerk, Suzanne, would you please?
I have for signature the certification for the 2000 equalization, which is a study that's done that compares the selling price to the assessed value. And that's done, Cheryl works on it, and it's also worked on with our assessor. And that's for you to sign tonight. Also, vendor manifest dated and payroll manifest dated October 18th, abatement number 30, and a land use change tax warrant to be signed. That's it.
Thank you very much. Now, moving on. Select Person's report. Mr. Ayer.
I have conservation and there is a couple new guests there and stuff, so there might be, there's a couple new guests there, and so hopefully she'll join. It was positive seeing new faces there, so it's good. The basic stuff we talked about, the sightings and stuff.
Thank you. Selectman Hadacroft. Select Person Hadacroft.
Thank
Oh, my
you.
goodness, I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. November 19th, Green Play, which is the group that has done the entire survey for the Recreation Department, will be presenting their findings to the Select Board and the Recreation Commission. Then immediately following that, speaking directly to the Rec Commission. December 3rd, the Recreation Commission will be presenting their budget here to the Select Board.
And that date was November 18th?
November 19th,
19th,
and then
thank you.
December 3rd will be reviewing their budget presentation.
Select Person Hatch?
We have a hearing that has been continued to the November meeting as far as we know, so unless there's changes, we will have a meeting in November.
Thank you. Select Person Nick?
Planning board met last Tuesday, and we did reviewed the lot that we all talked about earlier over on Mendham's Hemlock Lane. So we reviewed that private lane, and then we started looking at the guidelines for solar zoning ordinances, and looking at what would happen if like a large-scale solar field were someone had interest in putting one in Barrington. So starting to work on getting together a solar zoning ordinance and guidance plan for how we handle solar in the town. It was interesting because of the big PC get into there are some towns that are talking that have put tracking solar panels up, and they put them up in the way that they're configured. They impede their neighbors' view or vision as they move through the sky. And then, so there's some really interesting guidelines around size restrictions and placement and things like that with solar. So, that's all I got.
My report consists of the Saturday meeting, the library made their presentation. For those of you that weren't in attendance, you missed out on a lot of information. It was a very, very good presentation, and I would urge everybody when the next one comes to be there to see how it is. It'll answer all your questions. It was a good question and answer period afterwards, and I thought it was well worth the time spent, so I just encourage everybody to go there. That's all I have. Moving on, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Tickets for nothing but desserts are on sale. I saw it on the board when I was there.
Well, I don't have that.
They're on sale for $5 each. Right.
Any discount for the elderly?
Dollars.
I think next year you should
$6
get
for
the
you.
select board to bake.
Yeah, as a teen.
As a teen, yeah, talk about a team building experience. Wouldn't y'all love to see that on video?
Now, is hardtack considered a dessert?
I'd like to see the qualifications of that.
He'll be first in line.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry to get out of hand. All right, we have,
I would like to make a public comment.
please, go ahead.
Thank you. I understand that Cheryl is retiring, and she has served the town for many years, and I think there should be an acknowledgement on that retirement.
I would second Doug's position on that.
I think I agree 100%. Cheryl has done a lot of work for everybody. She's gone past the point of saying that that's just my job. She throws extra into it. And I, for one, have been the beneficiary of her extra help. Any other comments from the board?
I ran into her at town hall the other day and I thanked her. Go ahead myself.
Now I can move on.
Maybe.
May I make a public comment as
Sure,
well?
please, go ahead.
I would just like to thank the rec and everyone that was involved in the trunk or treat this past weekend. It was an absolutely wonderful time. I know my son definitely enjoyed it, right down to the meltdown of trying to get him to leave. But it was a great time and a great experience, so thank you to everybody that did it. It was an absolutely wonderful event. And thank you to all the people who actually set up their cars for trunks and trunk and treat.
Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All those opposed?
Right.
Alright, come by.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Holy cow.
That's a record.
No, we've done faster, we're still filming.
Yeah.
We don't, good.
Connor, are they doing like a retirement lunch or anything?
Yes.
When